this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super, I was almost ready to hate it. Predisposed to the preview, I thought that it was just going to be a jokey, ridiculous filler episode, and while a lot of people will argue that yes, it is a filler episode of the series, something about this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super was just pleasant. Just getting to see the characters hang out in a natural setting and be a family. Of course, there is a ridiculous excuse as to why this actually had to happen, and that's because Goku has actually lost control of his ki. After overexerting himself in the big tournament with Universe 6 using Super Saiyan God combined with the frickin' Kaioken technique, his body is completely exhausted, and thus he can't even fly around anymore. Hell, he actually ends up destroying his house in this week's episode, so be prepared to see an even more pissed off version of Chi-Chi than you have ever seen before. So he tries to get a little bit of advice by going to see King Kai, who basically lets him know, look, you just need to take it easy for a little while, this way you can eventually gain control of your ki again. He recommends that he spends time with his family and maybe even his granddaughter Pan, who truly is the real star of this week's episode. That is, if you don't want to count the return of the Pilaf gang. That's right, Pilaf, Mai, and Shu do return in this week's episode to do what they do best. Be exactly like Team Rocket, which is to say they completely fail at absolutely everything. They want to take advantage of the fact that Goku is now weak, and they build this brand new robot which is supposedly going to be able to take him down. However, things go south when Pan decides to actually run away from Goku, Chi-Chi, and Piccolo, and actually ends up finding the Pilaf gang outside. They then see that Piccolo is super pissed off about all of this, and we'll get to Piccolo in a second. He was really funny in this week's episode. Pan actually stows away on the robot of the Pilaf gang, and they end up going into the atmosphere, and this is a really funny scene because, one, Pan could have ended up being like a really annoying character. I mean, she's already a baby in an anime series, so you'd almost expect her to be crying the entire time, but no, she's probably the happiest freaking baby that I have ever seen, even during life and death situations. Hell, at the end of this week's episode, she actually activates her ki for what I'm guessing is the very first time, although there is the small indication from Gohan and Videl that she is certainly a handful, and this probably isn't the first time that she's actually taken flight. That being said, when she actually powers up in this week's episode, it's really funny and super adorable all at the same time. She doesn't become a full-blown Super Saiyan or anything, but you can definitely see the ki around her is pretty damn strong, already establishing the fact that the Pan from this series is probably going to be more powerful than the one that we saw in GT. And honestly, I can't wait to see her growth through the series, although we're going to have to go through one hell of a time skip if we want to see an older version of this character. And if you all remember, at the very end of Dragon Ball, she was very, very young when she was entering the tournament, and I imagine we're probably not going to get to those events. Although, who knows, maybe we'll do a big time skip in the series. I honestly think that would be really cool. But this week's episode, like I said, just the joy of it was just getting to see the characters hang out and be normal and just have a nice time together, especially with Goku, who got to spend a lot of time with Pan, and he also got to have a nice reunion with Piccolo, who is the ultimate caretaker and super protective of Pan. Essentially, he's the ultimate uncle, and he knows all of the things that she loves, all the things that she hates, and he always tries to leave advice for all of those who are going to watch her in a lot of really funny ways. It is amazing how different Piccolo is at this point, although he is fused with a couple of different Nameks, so I have a feeling that that is going to influence him quite a bit, despite the fact that they said when he fused with them that they really weren't going to have that much influence. But Piccolo really has changed as a character, and unfortunately has turned into something of a joke. I don't like the scene where Goku's hanging out with Piccolo on top of the house, and he mentions, look, I'm so weak right now that you could probably even defeat me. Goku, what the hell is that supposed to mean? That's a real dick thing to say to Piccolo. Piccolo deserves a massive power-up in Dragon Ball Super. I really hope it does happen eventually. I'd like him to be back on equal levels with like Goku and Vegeta, although at this point, that certainly is asking for a lot considering that Goku and Vegeta frickin' train with gods at this point. But still, I want to see more from Piccolo. He's always been one of my favorite characters from the entire series. And of course, there's the Pilaf gang. Oh, the Peel-Off Gang, they're okay as usual, doing what they always do, which is just being over the top and ridiculous. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super? Like I said, I almost wasn't expecting to enjoy this episode, but really I did like it. Like I said, it's always a lot of little small moments of Goku hanging out with his family, actually going to see King Kai. It's an extreme crime, though, that King Kai is still not, reacting strong enough to the fact that Goku is using Super Saiyan God with the Kaioken technique, because that's his signature technique, and he is really putting it to use, although at the same time, it certainly has some detrimental effects. Just using a 10 times version of it has caused Goku to completely lose control of his ki, which leads actually to a lot of funny moments, like when he uses instant transmission, he ends up in Bulma's bedroom, who just gets out of the shower, makes a really funny comment about her saggy breasts. I don't know what he's talking about, but Bulma still looks fine, in my humble opinion. Or when he goes back to the house and just crashes right into everything, just making it all crumble completely to the ground, but they're going to be okay. Chi-Chi has been actually saving all of that money that they got from Mr. Satan, trying to keep that away from Goku, because frankly, he just wants to goof off all day and train. And that's why this episode was so crucial to sort of put him in a family setting, in a way that we never really see too much in the Dragon Ball series. It was just really nice to see him hanging out with his granddaughter and having such a strong connection with her, and even by the end of the episode, she recognizes Goku as her grandpa, which is a really big moment for the series. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the cameo from Errol. She is the main character from Dr. Slump, which is a comedy manga from Akira Toriyama, the creator of the Dragon Ball series. For the last couple months, they've been hinting at the fact that she was going to be making an appearance, and I thought it was going to be a little more extended than this one, but honestly, I'm kind of okay with this. I'm not the biggest fan of Dr. Slump. I don't know a lot about it, aside from seeing her character in a couple of the episodes of the original Dragon Ball series, and her cameo in this week's episode is just as strange, as she's simply just pointing a piece of shit, which is pink, by the way, with a big smile on its face. That's all she's doing. She just reacts to Goku, and that's the end of her cameo. So I'm sure the Dr. Slump fans really enjoyed her poking shit this week. So all in all, this was a good episode of Dragon Ball Super. Gohan and Videl are taking their parenting very seriously, to the point where Gohan essentially is no longer a fighter. That is kind of lame, but I can't wait to see where they're going to go with the direction of the series from here. We know we got a big Future Trunks arc, which is going to be coming up, but before we get there, it looks like we're going on a big alien adventure in the next episode, with Goten and Trunks and all types of cool-looking monsters for them to fight against. It also looks like Goku's going to get involved again. Maybe he's finally got control of his ki again. We're just going to have to wait and see. That being said, this was just an okay, fun episode of Dragon Ball Super, getting to see some of your favorite characters in a much more relaxed setting, and it looked pretty good doing it, and Baby Pan was absolutely adorable. Not exactly my favorite episode from the series, but not really a bad episode either. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. Check it out, Dragon Ball Super fans. You might see something you like. But if any of you did watch this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super, why don't you tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below? Did you have a favorite scene from this week's episode? Maybe a favorite funny scene? What did you think of the return of Pan and her using her brand new ki powers to literally hold up the Peel-Off Gaming in the atmosphere of Earth? And what do you want to see from the rest of Dragon Ball Super in the upcoming Future Trunks arc? Please tell me in the comment section below. You guys are awesome! Thank you for watching this review, I really appreciate it. If you would like to help subscribe to the channel, why don't you hit that like button? Maybe subscribe to the channel as well, and you can check out all types of cool links in the description box below. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!